Hello there, everyone. If you're watching this video, then you are part of the TTOR army, an army that is building itself up one subscriber at a time. Now, before we get into the topic of today's video, I'd like to bring a very important PSA to you all. Let's talk about Quarter, which is the open source alt-tech alternative to YouTube that I founded a couple of months ago and is growing slowly but steadily. You can get hundreds, even 1,000+ views on your videos if you're lucky and you promote your content enough. You can build up subscribers if you actually try. You have a lot of the features that you would expect on a site like YouTube, such as HD video uploads, and also live streaming and free restreaming, and also public playlists and a simple but easy to use comment moderation system. And you even have features that you won't find on YouTube, like a video chat room that you can live stream to your channel from, and Quarter Bucks, which is an insight currency that you can use to promote your videos and your channel on the main page of the site without me or any other future moderators being involved. And you can say and do whatever you want on Quarter, and you won't be censored in any way. You won't be shadow banned. You won't have your videos taken down for having wrongthink. You won't have an algorithm that prevents your videos from getting views. Basically, you can get a lot of traffic here if you try, and if you keep promoting your channel on Quarter long enough to enough people, eventually you'll get a big audience on Quarter after a few years. You got to do the work if you want to get the stats. But anyway, if you want true freedom of speech on a cutting-edge video sharing site, then join Quarter today, whether you just be a content creator or a fan of a content creator. Now that we got that PSA out of the way, let's talk about the subject of today's video, which is genetically modified skeptic getting totally butthurt and totally offended, just melting like a cute little liberal snowflake because What Do You Meme decided to make a video about him. Now, let's go into the actual context around this, because in order to show the epic meltdown by genetically modified skeptic, we have to see everything that led up to the meltdown. So what I have on here is a tweet by Pelagia, the atheist YouTuber, who said, "Not exactly love of Christ, what do you meme?" And he said it in response to a genetically modified skeptic tweet. So I thought, let's look at the actual tweet by genetically modified skeptic. So genetically modified skeptic on September 4th, so a few days ago, said, "I haven't said anything about this for years because it's just drama, but I'm changing that. What Do You Meme made a YouTube video mocking my voice and appearance in 2020. He just posted the video on Facebook." And so here we have an actual picture of what he's talking about. What Do You Meme on Facebook said in a post, "Drew of Genetically Modified Skeptic came out with a video a while back called 'If Atheists Argued Like Theists.' So, have you ever wondered what it would be like if theists argued like atheists? Take a look." And then he shares the video in question. Now, before we see what genetically modified skeptic had to say in response, I think we should take a look at the actual video that What Do You Meme posted back in 2020 and shared recently on Facebook. The video in question is called "If Theists Argued Like Atheists." It has over 143,000 views. And without any further ado, let's see what Do You Meme had to say back then.
There's a video that came out a while back from popular YouTube atheist genetically modified skeptic. The video is called "If Atheists Argued Like Theists." Here's a preview.
You ever wonder what it would sound like if atheists started arguing like theists? I know God isn't real because I've experienced his non-existence personally. You can't prove God doesn't not exist. Just look at the mountains, look at the trees. It's just so obvious. The heavens declare the glory of the laws of physics. Just trust that God doesn't exist and reality will reveal itself to you. The human eye is just too complex to have been created. It must have evolved over millions of years through natural processes. I personally don't want to live in a world where God doesn't not exist. You know me. I wouldn't lie to you. God doesn't exist. Yeah, you say you used to be an atheist, but the fact that you're a theist now proves that you were never a true atheist. You know who else was a theist? Hitler.
Funny, right?
Yeah, sounds pretty ridiculous, doesn't it? Do you think any theist would actually be persuaded by these arguments? I don't think so. That's why these arguments shouldn't be used by anyone. The point is, if you make an argument that can be flipped around and used just as effectively to support a completely different point, then your argument isn't really effective at all. This goes for anyone on any side of any issue. Before using an argument, try swapping out a few words here and there to see if it works for any point. If it does, then it's not really an argument worth using. Now, obviously, I didn't go after any halfway sophisticated arguments for God's existence, just some of the more common cliches that atheists hear all the time. There are definitely much more nuanced arguments for theism. So if you want to see those debunked, then go ahead and check out the videos in my card box. Finally, it's pretty apparent that this video was inspired by one of Hemant Mehta's recent videos, so I'll go ahead and link that in the card box too, and you can check it out. Thanks for watching.
This video was so funny that after watching this, I asked my friend Organically Qualified Epic to make a video called If Theists Argued Like Atheists. Take a look. You ever wondered what it would sound like if theists started arguing like atheists? I would just love to believe, and I'm really open to being convinced otherwise. I just need for you to give me a single shred of evidence that I'm wrong. Nope, not convinced. I'm not saying your views are wrong. I'm just saying that I lack belief that you're right. Ha! Equal rights? If you were born in Saudi Arabia, you wouldn't even believe in equal rights. You've been so indoctrinated. We're all theists. You just believe in one less God than me. The only reason I spend so much time debating secular people is because they keep trying to impose their secular views on everyone else by having their secular beliefs pass legislation. Ha! You call that evidence? All you have are some guys saying that they did some experiments. You don't have evidence, you have claims. Claims aren't evidence. You don't believe that God exists? There are so many different ways of thinking about God and religion. What makes you think that your view is the right one? I need scientific evidence. There is no scientific evidence that Darwin existed. All I need is a shred of evidence. Now continue giving me evidence while I sit back and tell you how I'm not convinced. And I'll tell you that that's not even evidence. I don't need secular morality to know right from wrong. Yes, I'm a theist, but that doesn't mean that I believe that God exists. I just lack belief that theism is false, and I live my life as if God exists. I understand you believe that evolution explains why these fossils are in the ground, but that only shows that something died. What's that? What's my explanation for how they got there? Well, I'm not the one making an argument. I'm not the one making the claim. I'm just saying that I don't know, rather than pretending that I do know, like you. See how humble I am? No one cares about your personal testimony. Cool story, bro. Now let me tell you about how I grew out of my lack of belief. I'm so much more happy now. You guys are so judgmental, you dumb, unsophisticated, judgmental people. Personal experience is the worst kind of reasoning there is. What would convince me that I'm wrong? I don't know, but I'll know if I personally experience it. You really expect for me to believe that everything that you see came about without a God? Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Us theists actually understand atheism better than most atheists, since we all used to be atheists when we lacked belief as babies. Science books are not evidence. Try again. Religion gives you morality. Science gives you nuclear weapons. Too lazy to understand philosophy? Try atheism. You believe that everything physical inside of the universe has a cause? Well, we just go one step further and claim that the universe needs a cause as well. If it was logical to believe that God doesn't exist, we would not believe that God exists. I can't change my beliefs, bro. We don't care what you believe. We would leave you alone if you didn't try to impose your views on government and education. Atheism, the belief that there was nothing, and then nothing happened to nothing, and then nothing magically exploded for no reason, creating everything, and then a bunch of everything magically rearranged itself for no reason whatsoever into self-replicating bits, which eventually turned into dinosaurs. Yeah, makes perfect sense. Okay, explain to me what you believe. Nice word salad. Talk about mental gymnastics. I trust history. History is the most reliable method that we have for determining the past. STDs, sex education. Imagine being so obsessed with what goes on in someone else's bedroom. I've been studying this for 20 years. 20 years. And no one has been able to provide me a single shred of evidence that I'm wrong. If you got some, bring it. You can't, you ain't got it, and he doesn't either. You lose, I win. Yeah, sounds pretty ridiculous, doesn't it? Do you think that any theist would actually be persuaded by these arguments? I don't think so. This is why these arguments shouldn't be used by anyone. The point is, if you make an argument that can be flipped around and used just as effectively to support a completely different point, then your argument isn't really effective at all. This goes for anyone on any side of any issue. Before using an argument, try swapping out a few words here and there to see if it works for any point. If it does, then it's not really an argument worth using. Now, obviously, I didn't go after any halfway sophisticated arguments against God's existence, since internet atheists don't even try to offer any since they claim to only lack belief. Just some of the more common cliches that theists hear all the time from people who don't even know that there's arguments against God's existence in the first place. There are definitely much more nuanced arguments for atheism used in philosophy, but chances are you won't meet an online atheist who even knows that they exist. But there are many unsophisticated cliches. So, if you want to see those debunked, then go ahead and check out the videos in my card box. Finally, it's pretty apparent that this video is inspired by one of Drew from Genetically Modified Skeptics' worst videos, so I'll go ahead and link that in the description too, and you can check it out. Thanks for watching. Until next time, everyone stay skeptical about the views that go against your own. And the next time that someone says,
You ever wonder what it would sound like if atheists started arguing like theists?
what are you gonna say?
What do you meme? Whoa, when I show evidence, but you say there's no proof. What do you meme? Whoa, when you say there's no God, but you also say there's still grounding for objective moral values and truth. What do you meme? What do you meme?
Well, that's the whole video, if theists argued like atheists. So basically, what we saw John of What Do You Meme do in this video is he took Genetically Modified Skeptics' video about what if atheists argued like theists, and he turned it around on Genetically Modified Skeptic. In Genetically Modified Skeptics' video, he took the cliches and arguments that atheists typically hear from Christians and basically turned the arguments around to be arguments for atheism instead of theism in order to show how absurd the cliches and arguments are. Well, John just did the same thing in response to Genetically Modified Skeptic. He took the common arguments and cliches that we hear atheists like Genetically Modified Skeptic, or at least like the ones in his camp, say to us all the time. And all we did was turn the arguments around to be arguments in favor of theism instead of atheism, and then John presented a theist arguing like these atheists. And by doing this, John proved that their arguments were just as absurd and fallacious as the ones that Genetically Modified Skeptic was going after and responding to with his original skit. So John did the most logical thing you can do. And he also decided to do his best Genetically Modified Skeptic impression, which is why he tried to make his voice sound like Genetically Modified Skeptics, even though he didn't do the best job at that, and why he basically tried to copy the look and mannerisms and whatnot. He was basically just trying to do his best Genetically Modified Skeptic impression while he was trying to do the whole theists arguing like atheists bit. Good video and all, even if the execution wasn't perfect as far as the impression of Genetically Modified Skeptic goes. So how did Genetically Modified Skeptic respond to John resharing this video? Wow, I can't believe you're still proud of this video. Is doing a homophobic stereotype of a lisping voice and mocking someone's appearance showing the love of Christ? What universe do you live in, Genetically Modified Skeptic? I didn't see a homophobic stereotype being performed by John in that video. I saw him trying to impersonate you while doing his delivery of the skit, but that's not a homophobic stereotype. And I didn't see him mocking your appearance. Just because he tried to make himself look somewhat like you doesn't mean he's mocking your appearance. He's basically just doing a Genetically Modified Skeptic impression while doing his What If a Theist Argued Like Atheists skit. There's no homophobic stereotyping going on. There's no mocking of your appearance going on. John was mocking your arguments and the points you were making in your original skit. He was exposing how bad your argument was. He was exposing how atheism is every bit the religion that Christianity in the biblical worldview is, because you guys have arguments and cliches that you make that are just as silly, they're just as stupid, they're just as wrong, and they're just as unconvincing as the arguments that you find unconvincing coming from Christians. That's what John was doing here. And the fact that you immediately resort to, oh, he's doing a homophobic stereotype and mocking my appearance. The fact that this is your response to his video shows that you cannot handle criticism. You obviously can't handle being mocked, even though he wasn't really mocking you. He was exposing the fallacious nature of your original skit. But that's not all that Genetically Modified Skeptic had to say. In his follow-up tweets, he said, "Many YouTube apologists expressed approval in the comments on YouTube, and some have mocked my appearance on their own platforms. One has apologized privately, but nothing else has changed. I've been bullied for my size and appearance since I was a kid, so this isn't surprising." The difference here is John and his peers are grown men who have platforms where they position themselves as moral teachers. Impressionable young people follow their lead. Want to set a Christ-like example, John? Admit your fault to your audience and discourage bullying. Well, Genetically Modified Skeptic, John was not making fun of your appearance in his video, and I'm not making fun of your appearance in this video either. I don't care about your appearance. Your appearance has nothing to do with what's going on here. John threw your own video back in your face by exposing the fallacious nature of the arguments and cliches that atheists like you have been throwing at Christians for decades. And he exposed it by doing a little skit where a theist argues like you people, as far as your cliches and bad arguments go. Genetically Modified Skeptic, like most atheist YouTubers that I've come across, is practicing a humongous double standard here. When an atheist like him wants to mock or expose the cliches and the bad arguments that Christians make by making a video titled, "What if an atheist argued like theists?" That's okay. That's an appropriate thing to do. It's just a funny way to expose cliches and bad arguments. But when a Christian YouTuber like John does literally the exact same thing to atheists, he exposes their cliches and the bad arguments that he make by putting together a skit called "What if Theists Argued Like Atheists," and he does his best Genetically Modified Skeptic impression while he does it. Well, suddenly that's bad. Ooh, that's immoral. Ooh, you're bullying people, John. You need to repent. You need to apologize. You need to admit that you were wrong to do this video, and you need to discourage people from bullying others like you just did to Genetically Modified Skeptic. Boo-hoo. What a double standard. Big shocker coming from the atheist community. But then again, if atheist YouTubers like Genetically Modified Skeptic didn't have double standards, they would have no standards, because their worldview is logically incoherent and can't possibly be proven by the scientific method or observational science any more than mine can. They have a religious worldview just like me. But we can't even have a fruitful discussion about which religious worldview has better evidence supporting it, because people like Genetically Modified Skeptic and the YouTuber community in general for atheists, they can't even acknowledge that they have a worldview. They can't even acknowledge that their worldview is religious in nature. They're just incapable of doing it because it would completely destroy their entire attack on Christianity that they've been doing their entire lives as atheists. John has nothing to apologize for in this video, and if I were in his shoes and I was reading all this, I would be laughing my butt off like I did the first time I read this, and I would never apologize for what I did. Ever. And since genetically modified skeptic gives me the impression that he's a leftist as far as his political views go and as far as his positions on the issues and culture that we have, I find it kind of surprising that a white guy like genetically modified skeptic would be so quick to condemn a black man for being a bully, even though this black man made the same kind of video that genetically modified skeptic did. I find it incredibly interesting that genetically modified skeptic would condemn a black man as a bully for doing the exact same thing that genetically modified skeptic did before, namely exposing the bad arguments and cliches that an opposing camp makes by making a video saying, well, what if my camp argued like them? I think genetically modified skeptic could be struggling with a little bit of the old racism bug. After all, the people who often are the loudest voice in condemning racism, oftentimes they are the biggest racists on the planet. Anyway, that's all I have for this video. I really don't have anything more to add at this point. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching this video, and who knows, maybe I'll get a response from the genetically modified skeptic. And if I do, I'm sure that I'll be painted as one of the worst human beings on the planet and that I'm this colossal moron, because that's really all the atheist YouTube community can do in response to me. They can't out-argue me. They can't beat me in any kind of intellectual argumentation or intellectual battle because, well, intellect is not something that's in their favor, especially since they have no idea how to counter-argue against an opposing side when the opposing side responds to their arguments with something they can't immediately refute. So I'm sure if genetically modified skeptic makes a response to this video that it's going to be a very weak response. That's going to mostly be one big ad hominem attack on yours truly.